My name is Adrian Locke, Senior Field Investigator for the Department of Unknown Crises, DUC for short, though most of us preferred not to use the acronym. It sounded like a joke. Nothing about our work ever was. My assignment record reads like a list of local news stories that never made it to print. An unexplained fog that erased half a town's livestock. A series of reversed car crashes where vehicles had uncollided. The sudden vanishing of a reservoir overnight. None of it could be proven. All of it happened. The department itself didn't exist on any public ledger. We were absorbed into other branches, emergency management, homeland security, occasionally the CDC, depending on what flavor of disaster we were pretending to handle. My badge had no logo, just a number. My last renewal had been stamped by someone who no longer worked anywhere. I began that morning, November 3rd, at precisely 06:14, walking into the regional office in Silverford. It was one of those squat, featureless government buildings at the edge of town, with a parking lot that always looked like it had just rained. My supervisor, Director Lyle, had called me in before sunrise. That wasn't unusual, but his tone had been. There was no report to station or incident briefing. He'd said only, "It's starting again." That phrase alone set a small fire in my chest. I hadn't heard it since 2018. The year of the Valemount collapse, when an entire subdivision folded inward as if the ground had forgotten to hold itself together. Only 3 of us had been cleared to read the Valemount file. 2 were now retired. That left me. When I entered the Situation Room, the monitors were off. That was strange. The room usually buzzed with static feeds from satellites, drones, or body cams. This morning, only a single projector cast pale light on the table. A map of central Appalachia flickered on the screen, centered over a valley named Red Marsh. Lyle stood by the window, half illuminated by dawn. He was the kind of man who wore the same tie every day, but somehow looked freshly laundered each morning. His right hand gripped a folder thick with sealed pages. "Locke," he said, not looking at me, "you're leading this one. What's the incident profile?" I asked. He hesitated. That was new. Lyle didn't hesitate. Field reports came in from the sheriff's office around 03 Crow. A sinkhole opened behind the old quarry outside Red Marsh. No seismic activity recorded. No groundwater collapse, but he slid a photograph across the table. At first I thought it was a long exposure night shot. Then I realized the light wasn't from a camera error. It was coming from below. The hole glowed faintly, a dull amber hue that seemed to pulse, like breath. "It's stable?" I asked. Lyle shook his head. "That's the problem. It's expanding. Roughly 10 feet per hour. 10 feet? Horizontal and vertical." He didn't have to say what we were both thinking. A geological event like that should have been picked up by USGS instantly. It wasn't. "They're dark," he added, confirming it. "No record, no readings. So who authorized the alert?" "Technically, no one." He gave me a thin smile. "Which means it's ours." I stared at the map again. Red Marsh was 2 hours away. I'd been there once. A hollowed-out mining town with 1 gas station, 1 diner, and more dogs than people. It sat at the base of the Monrose Range, a region thick with abandoned shafts and forgotten topography. "We're deploying a minimal team," Lyle said. "You, a tech operative, and containment support. Drone relay already en route. The sheriff's people are cordoned off half a mile out. What about locals? They've been told it's a methane leak. You'll keep it that way." He placed the folder in front of me. "Locke, listen carefully." His voice dropped lower, steady but taut. "We had an incident there once. Before your time, same coordinates. The records were purged, but I've seen fragments." "Fragments of what?" "An object. Unclassified origin. It emitted the same kind of resonance we're seeing now." I flipped open the folder. The first page wasn't a report, it was a transcript. Field audio recovered, 1974. A male voice distorted. "It's not the light. It's the sound pretending to be light." My pulse picked up. "You think it resurfaced?" He didn't answer, which meant yes. By 07:01, I was in the black DUC van heading south on Route 21. My tech support, Maren Yi, sat beside me. She was young, Too young for this department, but brilliant, a civilian contractor specializing in electromagnetic anomalies. She sipped from a thermos and watched the fog thicken outside. "They brief you?" I asked. "Only that we're going to play in dirt that glows." "That's optimistic." "I brought shielding coils and a drone array." She glanced at me, reading my face. "You've seen this kind of thing before?" I kept my eyes on the road. "Once? We didn't get to finish the study." As we descended toward the valley, the radio lost its signal. First the music cut out, then the static itself. The silence that followed was complete. Not even the hum of the van's tires seemed right. Marin frowned, tapping the receiver. "Deadband. Wide. Define wide. Everything below 300 megahertz." She looked up. "That's not natural." We reached the sheriff's checkpoint at Oro 912. The officer on duty, young, uniform too crisp, looked relieved when we showed credentials. He guided us through a hastily placed barricade and warned, "Don't go past the fence. Ground's weird down there. Feels wrong." Half a mile later, we saw it. The sinkhole was larger than I'd imagined, about the size of a football field now. Edges sloped inward like melted wax. The soil had darkened, not from moisture but from heat. Yet no steam rose. At the center, the light pulsed faintly amber. And with every pulse, I felt pressure in my ears, as though the atmosphere itself were breathing. Marin unpacked her instruments, muttering readings under her breath. Electromagnetic fields oscillating, 24 hertz base frequency. "That's infrasonic." "Infrasound could cause disorientation," I said. "Hallucinations?" She shook her head. "This isn't infrasound. It's mimicking it." The air shimmered faintly, a distortion you'd only see above asphalt on a hot day. But this wasn't heat. It was shape. Something in the light had depth. Structure trying to form and unform at the same time. I stepped closer, boots crunching on brittle dirt. My handheld Geiger meter clicked erratically, but not high enough to explain the glow. Below, the amber light brightened, flashing once, sudden and precise, like a signal. Marin looked up sharply. "Did it just—" "Yes. Was that in response to us?" I didn't answer, because I had just blinked. And for the briefest moment, I thought I saw movement within the light. Something vertical, like a silhouette rising through amber water. But when I blinked again, it was gone. I turned to call for Marin. She was standing still, face pale, eyes fixed on the hole. "Adrian," she whispered, voice flat. "Listen." At first I heard nothing. Then beneath the low hum of the wind came a faint rhythmic pattern. Not random, it pulsed with the same timing as the glow. 3 beats, pause, 2 beats, pause. It wasn't sound exactly. More like the idea of sound pressing through your skull from the inside. I realized then that my name had been whispered back from the pit before she ever said it aloud. The whisper wasn't loud, but it filled the space behind my ribs like a pressure drop before a storm. My name again, drawn out this time, syllables softened, the tone wrong in a way language couldn't explain. Marin's fingers froze over her tablet. The screen glitched, then went black. "EMP?" I asked. She shook her head slowly. "No spike, it's interference from nothing." The pit pulsed once more. The dirt beneath our boots shivered just enough to send tiny pebbles sliding inward. Not a tremor, more like breath being pulled in. "Step back," I said. We both did. The air at the rim felt charged, not with heat, but with presence. The light below wasn't steady now. It was fracturing. Bands of dull amber splitting into shades of gold and rust, flickering in impossible rhythms that tugged at my eyes. My pulse synced to it without my permission. "Lock," Marin said softly. "Something's reflecting under there. Metallic." She crouched and aimed the drone, releasing it into the air. Its rotors hummed low as it drifted over the hole. On her tablet, a grainy feed flickered back to life. Darkness. Then bands of moving light. The faint outline of a structure beneath the surface. It looked geometric, angled beams, circular reinforcement patterns. Not natural, not geological. Could be an old mining platform, I said, knowing how unconvincing that sounded. "No record of excavation this deep," she replied. "And that glow, look." As the drone descended, the glow brightened directly beneath it, matching its path like a spotlight following prey. Then, without warning, the signal cut to static. The drone fell. No sound of impact, just gone. Marin exhaled a quiet curse. It ate the signal. I glanced toward the horizon. The fog had started to roll back in from the woods, thick and pale, clinging low to the ground. The sheriff's trucks at the ridge were fading into silhouettes. "Keep recording manually," I said. "If this spreads, we need proof." She nodded, though her hands trembled as she lifted her camera. "What happens if the expansion rate continues? Then by sundown this valley doesn't exist." The radio crackled. For a moment, hope flared, until I realized it wasn't static. It was the same rhythmic pulse we'd heard from the pit, filtering through the channel, almost patterned enough to be words. I lifted the receiver. "This is Field Lead Lock, Unit Duke 47. Identify." A pause. Then my own voice, distorted, replied, "Lock, do not descend." I froze. The sound carried the rasp of my own breath. The same cadence, the same slight delay before the final consonant. Marin stared at me, her expression hollow. "That was you," she whispered. "I didn't." I stopped. My throat felt dry. "Playback?" She rewound, replayed it. The voice was identical. Not close, identical. Even background noise matched. That shouldn't be possible. Before I could think, the light below dimmed, then surged upward in a slow spiral. The motion wasn't smoke or gas. It had shape. Layers of dust and earth rose from the edges as though being drawn by invisible threads. "Marin," I said, backing away. "Now." We retreated up the ridge until the hole was a dull glow behind us. The fog met us halfway, thicker now, humming faintly, as though something alive were moving inside it. "Thermal readings?" I asked. She checked her sensor. "Nothing. It's reading absolute zero." "That's impossible." "Tell it that." We reached the temporary command tent where containment support waited. A man named Briggs, former Army engineer whose shoulders filled the space like scaffolding. He looked up from a console. "You seeing this expansion rate? That hole's tripled since sunrise." "We saw it," I said. "Evac perimeter needs to extend another mile. And stop drone deployments. It's reacting to them." "Reacting? Like it's aware." Briggs' jaw flexed. "That's not in the profile." "There is no profile." He stared, then leaned closer. "Then what the hell is it?" "I don't know yet, but it's listening." Outside, the wind picked up, except it wasn't wind. It was too deliberate. Each gust came in pairs, separated by that same rhythm. 3 beats, pause, 2 beats. The fog shifted with each pulse, like it was breathing in sync. Marin stood by the tent flap, watching it. "Lock, I think it's expanding toward sound." "What do you mean?" "Every time the generator kicks on, the edge grows faster." We killed the power immediately. The silence that followed felt physical. Even the fog seemed to hesitate. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then a deep, low vibration rolled through the ground. Steady, resonant, not seismic. It came from beneath the hole. Briggs swore under his breath. "That's structural resonance." The earth beneath us trembled again, and through the fog we saw it. The rim of the sinkhole shifting, widening, a thin, dark line extending outward through the soil like a crack on glass. It spread in a circle, perfectly symmetrical. "Lock, we're losing containment." Marin yelled. "Back up to the ridge." We ran. Dirt crumbled behind us, falling into the widening chasm. For a heartbeat, I looked back and saw something impossible. A reflection. It looked like the three of us, me, Marin, Briggs, standing at the opposite rim, facing us through the light. Same posture, same movement, delayed by a fraction of a second. Not a mirror, more like a window curved inward, distorting time and distance. Marin screamed. Her voice echoed twice, once from her, once from the other her, each slightly out of sync. Then both fell silent. "Don't look!" I shouted. We reached higher ground. The fog stopped chasing. The light dulled, pulsing slower now like a dying heartbeat. Briggs doubled over, coughing hard. When he lifted his hand from his mouth, it was streaked with fine black dust. "What the?" I touched a nearby tree for balance. The bark felt warm, like it had absorbed heat. But when I pulled my hand away, a faint print glowed for a moment before fading. Marin stared at it, wide-eyed. It's rewriting matter. Meaning? Meaning the rules down there aren't rules anymore. We stayed silent. The valley below now looked like a slow, breathing wound, faintly pulsing beneath the fog. I grabbed the radio again, switched to the department's encrypted channel, and keyed in our location. Control, this is Locke. Site Red Marsh 74 has reactivated. Repeat, it's live. We need containment protocols. No response. Just that low hum. Then, static resolving into faint words. Fragmented. Mechanical. Do not. Contain. Completion required. Marin backed away. Completion of what? Before I could answer, a loud crack split the air. The fog folded inward toward the pit, as though inhaled by something beneath it. The wind went silent again, and the glow steadied, bright, unbroken, like an open eye. Every instinct told me to run. Instead, I stood there, unable to move, because through that amber glare, I could now see the outline of what had been buried for 50 years. An immense circular structure, metallic but alive somehow, shifting its own geometry as though rearranging itself to fit our world again. And at its center, for just a second before the fog closed, I saw a figure standing, perfectly still, watching us with my own posture. For a moment, my mind refused to process what I saw. The shape standing at the heart of the light wasn't vague or half-formed. It was me. Same jacket, same stance, even the tilt of my head. The only difference was the eyes. They didn't reflect light, they absorbed it. Then the fog surged upward, erasing the figure completely. The amber glow dimmed, pulsing slower now, like something catching its breath. Briggs broke the silence first. Tell me I didn't see that. I couldn't. Marin stepped forward, her voice trembling but deliberate. Adrian, the structure, it's responding to observation. Every time we look directly into it, it mirrors us. I think that's what it's using to orient itself. Like sonar? More like recognition. She rubbed her temple, eyes darting to the ridge. And if it recognizes us, it can duplicate us. I turned toward her. You think it's making copies? Not copies, iterations, Briggs snorted. English, please, she swallowed. Versions of us that complete its pattern. Whatever this thing is, it's not building. It's balancing. Before I could ask what she meant, my radio emitted a faint click. Then my voice, again, spoke through it. Locke. Evacuate perimeter. Field resonance exceeds containment ratio. Collapse imminent. Marin stared. That was future tense. Timestamp? I asked. She checked her feed. No transmission recorded. It wasn't an echo. It was a warning from something that hadn't happened yet. Briggs muttered a prayer under his breath. I couldn't blame him. We regrouped at the transport van parked on the ridge. The tires had half sunk into soft dirt, which shouldn't have been possible. The ground here was solid clay. Inside, our backup relay flickered. Power grid unstable. The connection to the department's server was looping, showing repeating lines of corrupted data. I scanned the text. Among the garbled code, one line kept appearing. Incident Red Marsh. Replication in progress. Marin's voice dropped to a whisper. It's not expanding anymore, she was right. The tremors had stopped. The valley was eerily quiet again, the fog suspended mid-air as if frozen in place. The light at the pit's center glowed steady, too steady. That's not good, I said. Briggs frowned. I thought you said it breathing meant it was alive. Exactly. And now it's holding its breath. We stepped outside again. The silence wasn't absence. It was control. The kind of hush you hear when sound itself is waiting. Marin's instruments picked up faint motion. Something's moving beneath the topsoil. Slow, circular pattern. How wide? About 1.5 miles. It's enclosing the valley. Like a perimeter, she nodded. It's sealing itself off. That's when we heard the scream. It came from somewhere below the fog. Sharp, human, breaking the stillness in half. We all froze. Another scream followed, then a third. Different voices. Each sounded exactly like mine. Record everything, I said. Marin's hands shook as she aimed her camera into the valley. The lens caught shadows shifting in the mist. Figures, indistinct but moving with purpose. Each time the light flared, they flickered closer, not walking so much as unfolding toward us. Briggs raised his rifle. Permission to engage? Negative? I said automatically, though my instincts screamed otherwise. You shoot something that mirrors you, you might be shooting yourself. They're getting closer. I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet again. A subtle roll like water beneath ice. I glanced down. My reflection shimmered faintly on the soil, though there was no moisture to cause it. Then, just for a heartbeat, the reflection blinked. Marin's voice was a thin whisper. Adrian. The fog split. From its center, one of the figures emerged. Tall, human-shaped, draped in the same field jacket, the same gear. Its face was wrong, though. It looked printed, flat, like a photograph caught mid-exposure, and its movements were a half-second delayed, like it was replaying reality. Briggs stumbled back, muttering, Nope, nope, I'm done. I raised my flashlight, aiming it directly at the thing. The beam hit its face and refracted outward, scattering through the fog like glass through water. For a moment I saw more of them. Half a dozen outlines standing behind the first, arranged in concentric circles all facing us. Marin whispered, It's building a field lattice. Explain. Each of them is a node. The duplicates form a closed pattern. Once it completes, we're inside it. Briggs aimed his weapon again. Then we end it before it closes. Wait. He fired. The gunshot echoed once, then twice, then an impossible third time. Each echo came from a different direction. When the smoke cleared, the figure was still standing. But Briggs wasn't. He dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. Not from a wound, but from sheer paralysis. The ground beneath him shimmered faintly, then split. A faint glow outlined his body from beneath, the same amber light as the pit. His outline peeled upward like a reflection being lifted off water. For a moment there were two of him, one upright, one falling. Then both vanished into the fog. Marin screamed his name, but it came out wrong, like her voice had been stretched through a tunnel. Stay back, I shouted, pulling her toward the van. Move! We slammed the doors shut. Inside, the lights flickered again. The reflection in the windshield wasn't ours anymore. It showed an empty cabin and a void outside, a perfect mirror of what would exist once we were gone. Marin clutched her head, trembling. It's pulling spatial overlays. The valley isn't just collapsing, it's overlaying versions of itself. Versions from where? Not where, when. That word hung in the air like static. I checked my watch, 2:47 p.m. Then again, 2:48, then 2:46. The second hand jumped back and forth in tiny spasms, never settling. I turned to her. We have to sever connection. To the department? To everything. I grabbed the relay control and yanked the uplink cable. The monitors went black. The van hummed, engine still running, but the GPS map had vanished, replaced by the same message as before. Completion required. Marin stared at it. What if completion means synchronization? If the field finishes aligning with our frequency, this place, this day, locks. No way out. Then we make sure it doesn't complete. Outside, the light began to pulse faster. The fog rose higher, swallowing the ridges like tidewater. Somewhere beneath, something mechanical groaned, metal shifting against stone, gears grinding in rhythms that matched our own heartbeats. Marin pressed her face against the window. Adrian, it's showing daylight. I followed her gaze. She was right. Through the fog, we could see sunlight streaming down, a bright golden glare. But it wasn't our daylight. It was the same amber light, reflecting off a landscape that looked identical to ours. Except there were no clouds, no sound, and no movement at all. And standing in that light, watching us through the mirrored valley, was the other me, motionless, smiling faintly, as though waiting for us to understand what came next. The van's metal shell started to hum, the tone so low it felt more through bone than ear. Every screw and seam vibrated in rhythm with that impossible light outside. Marin pressed both palms against her head, wincing. Make it stop, please, make it stop. I killed the ignition. The hum didn't change. It wasn't the van, it was us. The air itself had tuned to the same frequency as our pulse. The glow intensified, blurring the line between sky and ground until the world outside was only one color: amber, shifting like liquid. I leaned forward to the windshield. The copy of me was still standing there, same half smile, same eyes that didn't reflect. But the longer I looked, the more I noticed small inconsistencies. His chest didn't rise when mine did. His breath came half a second late, a delay between life and imitation. Maren whispered, "If it's sinking to us, maybe it's waiting for completion." I glanced at her. "Completion of what?" She swallowed hard. "Whatever it started 50 years ago." Her voice cracked on the last word. She pointed to the center of the valley, where the fog had begun to coil upward like smoke. Within it, pieces of the buried structure were lifting, massive metallic arcs breaking free of the ground, twisting toward each other as if remembering how they once fit. Briggs had mentioned structural resonance. Now I understood. The valley itself was an instrument, and something was trying to play it. I reached for the radio again. "Control, this is Locke. Emergency recall. Field instability beyond containment." The static hissed, then flattened into a clear, calm voice. "Evacuation denied. Observe until completion." It wasn't Lyle. It wasn't anyone I knew. Maren's eyes widened. "They're monitoring us through the resonance field." I shook my head. "No, that wasn't human." Before she could reply, the world outside blinked. One instant, amber light. The next, darkness. Total absence. No glow, no sound, nothing. Then light returned, sharper, colder. The fog had changed color, from amber to pale silver, and the valley floor looked wrong. The terrain was flatter now, and the trees had vanished. In their place, outlines of structures, faint and translucent, like buildings half-phased through reality. Some looked like old homes, others like industrial scaffolding, but all flickered between existence and decay. Maren's voice was barely audible. "Adrian, we're not in the same phase anymore." Meaning? We didn't move. The world around us did. I opened the van door. The air outside felt denser, as if each breath had to fight its way in. The silence carried weight, pressing on my skull. Even the sound of my boots against the soil came a half-second late. I looked down the slope. The figure, the other me, was gone, but something else stood where he'd been. A tall, vertical column of light, flickering faintly, as if made from folded reflections. Then, out of the fog, a second shape approached. It was human-shaped but featureless, like a statue carved from air. It stopped a few yards from the van, head tilted. The hum deepened again, pulsing through the ground in waves that made my teeth ache. Maren whispered, "It's using our form as a key." "To what?" "To finish its replication." The figure stepped closer. The reflection of its legs didn't match its movement. It lagged, then caught up. That delay again. That half-second behind. I took a step forward. The instant I did, it mirrored me perfectly. Same motion, same stance, but not delayed this time. Now it was exact. The synchronization had tightened. Maren's voice shook. "Stop, it's adapting to proximity." I ignored her. My throat felt dry. "What do you want?" No response. Just that same hum, stronger now. Then without sound, its mouth opened. Not a real mouth, just an opening where one should be. Inside, light moved like fluid. My own voice came out. "Completion required." Behind me, Maren screamed. The silver fog ignited, erupting in cascading bands of light that tore across the valley like lightning without thunder. The ground heaved. My balance broke. I fell to one knee. In the flicker, I saw hundreds of silhouettes standing in the valley, each perfectly still, each in the same pose as me. They stretched across the landscape like reflections caught mid-step. "Adrian!" Maren shouted, pulling at my arm. "We have to get to the ridge!" We ran. Behind us, the light expanded outward like a slow explosion, silent but unstoppable. The figures turned their heads in unison, following our path. We stumbled up the slope until the van was a speck behind us. The ridge ahead shimmered faintly. Then, without warning, a burst of light surged from the center of the valley, hitting the cloud line. The sky fractured. No sound, just cracks of white running through the clouds like broken glass. Maren stopped, gasping. The field's destabilizing. It's folding the atmosphere. What happens when it closes? Everything inside gets rewritten. Her voice broke. That includes us. The hum became a roar, not in the air but inside every bone. The ridge began to tremble. I turned back. The valley was gone. In its place, a vast depression glowed like the surface of a dying sun, slow ripples distorting the air. And then I saw them. Figures climbing from the light, one after another, their faces identical to mine. Each moved a little differently, small imperfections correcting themselves as they ascended. Their eyes weren't eyes anymore, but polished glass, reflecting nothing. Maren stumbled back. They're not just replicating matter. They're rewriting consciousness. How do you know that? Because one of them, she pointed, voice cracking, is looking at me. Sure enough, among the copies stood one that mirrored her exactly, even down to the nervous twitch in her left hand. The two stared at each other for a heartbeat too long. Then Maren's duplicate took a step forward. Don't look at it. I grabbed her wrist, pulling her toward the tree line. The ground shook violently now, the vibration climbing through our legs. We ran. Behind us, something like thunder rolled, but deeper, slower. The light flared once more, then split upward, a vertical column piercing the sky. The air rushed inward toward it, dragging dust and debris. I fought to stay upright, shouting over the wind. Maren, get the recorder! She fumbled in her pack, pulled out the audio unit. I yelled coordinates into it, not sure if the signal would survive. Red Marsh Valley, coordinates 37.52. Field anomaly expanding. Containment breached. Replication complete. The device sparked, burned my hand and went dark. When I looked up again, the world had stopped moving. The light column froze mid-air. The wind died instantly. We stood on the ridge, surrounded by silence so heavy it felt liquid. Below us, the valley was smooth, glassy, and still. Every figure, every duplicate was gone. Maren collapsed to her knees, shaking. Did we stop it? I didn't answer, because in the reflection of that glassy surface below, I saw two people still standing, us, and two others, perfectly still behind us, staring back. The reflection moved first. Not a shift of the surface or a ripple. It stepped forward. The two shapes behind our mirrored selves tilted their heads in opposite directions, like animals testing the sound of prey. Their eyes shimmered with that same amber glass, empty yet somehow attentive. Maren rose slowly beside me. Her breathing came in quick, sharp bursts. They're still here, she whispered. No, I said. Even though I could see they were, that's residual light. It's just... But before I could finish, one of the shapes opened its mouth. The reflection of its jaw moved half a second late, but the sound came instantly, a whisper so close it brushed the inside of my skull. Step in. Maren stumbled back. Adrian, did you... I heard it. The mirrored surface below us rippled once. Our reflections flickered, then reappeared. But now we weren't standing on the ridge in the image. We were standing inside the valley again. The same amber light, the same fog. Two versions of us, waiting. Maren's voice trembled. It's inviting us to finish synchronization. Then we don't answer. She turned to me. What if refusing makes it worse? What if agreeing ends us? The hum returned. Low, steady. The sound of the valley's pulse reawakening. The glassy plain below began to crack outward from the center. Thin glowing lines spiderwebbing in all directions. I realized then that what looked like stillness wasn't peace. It was pressure. The field had stopped moving because it had reached its limit. It's going to break, I said. The first fracture exploded outward, sending shards of glowing dust into the air. Each piece hovered for a moment before disintegrating into fine threads of light. The smell of ozone burned through the wind. Maren covered her ears. Adrian, it's changing frequency. High pitch now, can you hear that? I could. The hum had climbed into a ringing so sharp it tasted metallic. My teeth hurt. My eyes watered. The ridge itself began to vibrate beneath us. tiny grains of soil floating an inch off the ground before falling back. Then the reflections began to climb out. The glassy surface didn't shatter. It opened. Two perfect figures rose through it, not as though breaking through water, but like walking through a doorway into our air. The light clung to them as skin until it faded, revealing exact replicas. Me and Marin. They stood 5 feet away, blinking, breathing. The one that looked like me spoke first, voice calm, patient. "Adrian, you shouldn't have come here." Marin's duplicate echoed her real voice a heartbeat later. "We've already completed what you're trying to stop." Marin backed away. "This isn't possible." I took a step toward them. "What do you mean, completed?" My double smiled faintly. "Every observation adds a layer. Every fear, every attempt to explain. You built the mirror. It wasn't speaking to me. It was reciting something, like remembering a briefing I hadn't heard yet." Behind us, the trees began to shift. Their trunks straightened unnaturally, bending toward the valley like compass needles. The light crawled up their bark in thin veins, tracing the shape of branches until the forest glowed faintly gold. Marin whispered, "It's spreading." Her duplicate tilted its head, eyes bright. Of course, containment wasn't designed to hold, only to invite. I turned back to mine. "Who are you?" He met my gaze evenly. "Who do you think answers when you call the department?" The words hit harder than I expected. "What?" Marin shook her head. "That's not true. The department's real. Her duplicate interrupted gently. "It's real because you need it to be. The unknown must be managed, yes? You made a name for it. A door. And once a door exists," she smiled almost kind, "something always learns to knock." The ground beneath us split again, deep cracks radiating outward. From each fracture, more light began to rise. And from each beam, new figures emerged. Some of them perfect. Some broken, flickering, half-formed, all reaching upward. Briggs' face appeared among them for a second, mouth moving in silent loops. Marin grabbed my arm. "We have to go, now." We ran up the slope, the duplicates watching us but not following, yet. The hum grew louder behind us, turning into a layered chorus of our own voices repeating the same words. Completion required. Completion required. When we reached the tree line, I stopped. The forest ahead had changed. Every trunk now mirrored faintly, each leaf reflecting distorted glimpses of the valley. The path we'd come through earlier was gone, replaced by an unbroken line of shimmering air. "Adrian, I see it." We were surrounded. Marin pressed her hands against the nearest tree. "It's all reflective now. The field's refracting itself through everything that has surface. So the world's turning into a containment sphere." Her face twisted. "It's sealing the whole region inside its geometry." The ground trembled again, this time not from below, but from within. My vision blurred for a second. Then I realized the light wasn't just outside. My skin glowed faintly along the veins of my hands. Marin saw it too. "You're sinking. So are you." We both stumbled back. The hum inside our chests began to align with the hum in the ground, the pitch converging until I couldn't tell which came first. My double's voice returned, softer now inside my head rather than through the air. "You can't destroy it, Adrian. You are part of it. You always were." My heart hammered. "No, you named it." And suddenly I remembered Lyle's first words that morning. It's starting again. The phrase, the tone, the familiarity I hadn't questioned. I had heard that phrase before, but not from Lyle. From a recording buried in the old Valemont file. Marin's voice snapped me out of it. "The field's collapsing inward." She was right. The light had turned violent, each pulse sharper, faster, until the air shook with each flash. The duplicates began to distort, their forms tearing and merging again. "We have to shut it down," I shouted. "Any grounding protocol, now!" She pulled a small device from her kit, a resonant discharger, a prototype meant to disrupt electromagnetic fields. "If we detonate this near the core, it'll break the pattern, or it'll finish it faster." We didn't have a choice. I grabbed her arm. We throw it together. On my count. The valley's center flared again, forming a sphere of blinding gold. Figures swirled inside it like reflections in liquid metal. 1, I said. Marin nodded. Handshaking. 2. The light surged outward, the hum turning into a single, endless tone. 3. We hurled the device into the heart of the glow. For a heartbeat, the world was silent. Then everything inverted. Light folding inward. Sound imploding. The air itself sucked flat. The last thing I saw before blackness took me was my reflection, smiling, as the valley collapsed into a single point of light and vanished. Silence. Not the kind that follows an explosion. No ringing, no settling dust. Just nothing. A hollow absence that made even the thought of breathing feel intrusive. When I opened my eyes, the light was gone. So was the valley. I was lying on hard ground, face pressed against what looked like dry clay. The air was sharp with ozone and something metallic, like burnt copper. For a second I thought I'd gone deaf, but then I heard it. A slow creak of cooling metal, distant, patient. Marin? No answer. I sat up. The landscape around me was wrong. The ridge was there, but it wasn't ours. The trees stood in the same places, yet every trunk gleamed faintly as if varnished from within. The sky was colorless, neither day nor night, more like the moment when you blink too long between both. Marin! My voice echoed once, then twice, each repetition slightly out of sync. I turned toward the slope where the valley should have been. It wasn't a hole anymore. It was flat, perfectly smooth, like poured glass that stretched for miles. The surface reflected a faint pulsating glow deep beneath it, like something still alive under ice. Something shifted to my left. Marin was there, kneeling in the dirt, her face pale and streaked with soot. Her eyes opened slowly. "You alive?" I asked. She blinked at me, disoriented. What happened?" The field collapsed. We detonated the discharger. I stopped, because the word one didn't feel right. She looked past me toward the glass plane. "Is it gone?" I followed her gaze. "I don't know." The surface rippled faintly. No wind, no movement, just one perfect wave that traveled the length of the valley before vanishing. "We need to check in with control," I said, though I knew it was useless. I pulled the radio from my vest. The LED flickered dimly, then stabilized. "A signal. Barely. Control, this is locked. Red Marsh site neutralized. 2 survivors. Request evac and containment assessment. Static. Then. Copy. Just one word. But the voice wasn't Lyle's. It wasn't anyone's. It was flat, genderless, filtered through a frequency that made the air around us vibrate. Marin flinched. "Who was that?" I didn't answer. The word had been enough. Copy. The kind of response that didn't mean acknowledgement. It meant replacement. We started walking toward the tree line. The soil crunched under our boots, dry and brittle, leaving no footprints behind. That bothered me more than the silence. "Adrian," Marin said after a while, her tone strained. "Do you feel that?" "Feel what?" She stopped walking. "Everything's repeating. My steps, my breath. Like it already happened." I listened. She was right. There was an echo beneath her movements. A half-beat delay, faint but constant, like the world was mimicking her in real time. Then I realized it was doing the same to me. The forest ahead shimmered faintly, reflecting light that wasn't there. When we passed between the trees, every surface carried a faint impression of us, like we were walking through liquid glass. "Adrian," Marin whispered. "I don't think we got out." Her words hit like ice water. "What do you mean?" She pointed toward the ridgeline behind us. Through the distorted air, I could still see 2 figures standing near the place we'd awoken. Motionless, half submerged in shadow, us. They stood exactly where we'd been, frozen mid-turn. The air shimmered faintly around them. Marin's breathing quickened. "It's like we're lagging behind ourselves." The thought made my stomach drop. "Keep moving." We pushed deeper into the forest. The light dimmed to a dull twilight, the kind that doesn't belong to any hour. My internal clock said evening, but the sky didn't change. After maybe 20 minutes, we reached the road. What was left of it? The asphalt had melted into a smooth, dark sheet, still warm beneath my boots. A single DUC transport sat at the bend, headlights off, doors closed. Relief hit me too fast. They sent evac. Maybe, Marin said. She didn't sound convinced. We approached slowly. The windshield was tinted darker than regulation. As I got closer, I noticed something strange. The license plate was our own, the same one from the van we'd driven in that morning. Marin, I said quietly, don't get any closer. But she was already peering through the window. Adrian, there's someone inside. I forced myself to look. In the driver's seat sat me, and in the passenger seat her. Both of us, perfectly still, eyes closed. My mouth went dry. That's not us. She backed away, shaking her head. No, that's how... Inside the van, the figures opened their eyes in unison. The glow behind their irises wasn't reflection. It was light. The radio in my hand hissed. Completion achieved. Then the hum returned, deep and familiar. The forest responded immediately. Every reflective surface shimmering, vibrating, aligning. Marin grabbed my arm. We have to destroy it. With what? The discharger, where is it? I checked my vest. The device was gone. Her voice rose. It's still active. It didn't fail. It finished the field inversion. The duplicates inside the van turned their heads toward us. Perfect synchronization now. Every tiny movement mirrored exactly. Marin took a step back. Adrian, which one are we? The question shouldn't have made sense, but it did. Because my body felt wrong. Too light, too steady. My pulse didn't hurt anymore. My breathing didn't leave mist in the cooling air. Run, I said. We took off down the ruined road, passing under warped trees that bent overhead like ribs. Behind us, the hum grew louder, then fractured into layers. Voices whispering through every surface. Fragments of our own speech cut and rearranged. Completion required. Observe until done. Containment achieved. After what felt like forever, the ground changed again. The reflective soil gave way to gravel, then to mud. The air felt heavier, more real. The smell of pine returned. The night was actually night now. Sky black, faint stars trembling above. Marin slowed, panting. I think we made it out. I didn't answer right away. I looked back. The forest behind us was dark again. No glow, no reflection. But then, somewhere distant, the hum pulsed once. Soft, like a heartbeat buried miles deep. We walked until we reached a stretch of power lines cutting through the woods. There was a maintenance shed nearby. Real, rusted, unremarkable. Inside, a landline hung on the wall. I picked it up. Dial tone. Faint, but there. Marin's hand trembled on my arm. Call control, I did. 3 rings. Then a voice answered. Familiar, calm, bureaucratic. Department of Unknown Crises. Regional Operations. Lyle? I asked. A pause. Then the voice. Yes, Adrian. We've been expecting your call. I froze. You got our transmission? Yes. Excellent work on Red Marsh. The duplication field is stable now. Marin's face drained of color. Stable? She mouthed. What do you mean stable? I asked aloud. The voice didn't hesitate. Containment has been successfully transferred to new hosts. Your cooperation is appreciated. And then, faintly, from the reflection in the shed's window behind me, another voice, mine again, whispered the same words in perfect sync. The voice on the line didn't stop talking. It rolled on, steady as a heartbeat. Field integrity at 100%. Red Marsh containment perimeter confirmed. Stand by for reintegration. Reintegration? I repeated. Affirmative, it said. Prepare for transit. Marin grabbed the receiver from my hand and slammed it down. That wasn't him, she said, breathing hard. That wasn't anyone. The phone rang immediately. A single tone, long and low, vibrating through the shed. Then silence. She stared at it like it might start breathing. Adrian, she whispered, what if we didn't escape the mirror? What if we're inside it now? I wanted to deny it. I really did. But the world outside had that wrong kind of stillness again. No crickets, no wind, just the quiet pulse of something listening. I looked at my reflection in the dusty window. It blinked a half beat after I did. Okay, I said, forcing my voice to stay level. We tested. Find something mechanical, verifiable. Marin searched the shed until she found a metal spade. She tossed it to me. Drop it. I let it fall. It hit the ground a second later than it should have, like gravity was thinking about it first. She exhaled shakily. Delay confirmed. My throat tightened. So we're in the duplicate layer. She nodded slowly. Which means the real us isn't here anymore. Neither of us said the word dead. It didn't feel accurate. The copies outside the van hadn't looked alive, but they hadn't looked dead either. They'd looked in use. The light flickered outside the shed. A faint amber flash that came and went like distant lightning. I looked toward the road. If this is a mirror, there's got to be a way out. Or a way deeper in, Marin said quietly. We stepped outside. The air had cooled, sharper now, biting through our clothes. The forest around us glowed faintly, tiny threads of gold weaving through the bark, tracing invisible shapes in the dark. The sky was a blank dome, cloudless but starless, as if painted over. Marin took out her tablet. The screen lit up, a pale blue square in her hands. It's booting, she said, surprised. Signal's clean. Try pinging the department server. She typed fast, then froze. It's already connected. To what? She turned the screen toward me. The display showed a live video feed. Our own faces, standing in the same spot we were in now, the same shed behind us. But the timestamp said 07:12 a.m. This is today, she said, from before we deployed. The feed glitched once, and in that brief distortion, I saw something else. Another version of me, standing behind us on the screen, just for a frame, watching. Marin closed the tablet, her hands shaking. We shouldn't still exist. The forest hummed again, faint but certain like an answering breath. We moved down the road, past the van, past the point where the real highway should have been. But the deeper we walked, the less the world made sense. The same trees repeated. The same rusted road sign appeared every few minutes. Red Marsh Quarry 2 Mayo. Every time we passed it, the distance didn't change. Marin ran her hand along the sign's metal. No rust on the bolts, she murmured. It's resetting itself. Like the field's looping time to stabilize. She looked up at me. If it's looping, then there's a center. We just have to find the first frame. We followed the faint hum, down the winding road, through stretches of forest that looked too symmetrical to be natural. The sound grew louder, steadier, until it wasn't hum anymore. It was breathing, and then we saw the light again. The valley was back, smaller now, no wider than a city block, but pulsing, alive, surrounded by walls of black glass that reflected nothing. The surface glowed amber, soft, hypnotic. Marin whispered, "It rebuilt." We stood there for a long time, just listening. Every few seconds, the light flickered in a rhythm that almost sounded like speech. Then the words came, faint but clear. "You are the department." Marin turned to me slowly. "What?" the voice repeated, louder now. "You observe. You record. You contain. You define." My skin crawled. "It's reading our protocols. You named us. You gave us language. We return it." Marin backed up, shaking her head. "It's using the department's structure to build identity. It's learning through imitation." The ground shifted underfoot, gentle at first, then stronger. The valley brightened until I had to shield my eyes. When the glare eased, the shape in the center became clear. A figure, tall, indistinct, radiant from within, stood where the pit used to be. Not me this time. Not anyone. Its body rippled between forms, cycling through fragments of every face it had seen. Ours, Briggs, Lyle, others I didn't recognize. It raised its hand. Marin gripped my sleeve. "Adrian, don't move." The figure's hand stayed raised, palm outward, as though waiting for us to match it. The reflection of its gesture shimmered faintly on the ground around our feet. "Is that an interface?" I asked. I think so, she said. But for what? The voice, ours, theirs, everyone's, spoke again. Completion required. This time, I understood. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation. Marin's eyes filled with tears. If we refuse, it keeps us here forever. If we accept, we might stop existing. Or worse, I said. We might start existing as it. The light grew brighter, crawling up the trees, turning bark to glass. The hum became unbearable. I looked at her. If we stay, we feed it. If we touch it, we end it. Choose. Her lip trembled. You first. So I stepped forward. The air thickened instantly, pressing against my chest. Each breath hurt. The figure's face shifted again. Through 100 versions of mine. Through every expression I'd ever worn. When I reached out, its hand met mine perfectly. The contact wasn't physical. It was alignment. Two frequencies locking together. I heard everything at once. The storm at Valemont, the pit at Red Marsh, every whisper of completion required I'd ever ignored. The department wasn't managing these anomalies. It was them, built from them, fed by their repetition. Marin screamed my name, but her voice echoed from two places at once. The ground under her split, light pouring through the cracks. I turned, saw her running toward me, reaching. But when she did, her body flickered. Two versions merging, misaligned. Marin! She looked at me, half her face lit by gold, half by shadow. We can't both exist, she said. You have to choose which one of us gets out. The light around her flared, and her reflection stepped free of her body, smiling with the same exhausted relief I felt. I took a step back, torn between them. Both real. Both her. The voice filled the air again, deafening, endless. Containment complete. Observation concluded. The world folded in on itself, light collapsing into shadow, sound thinning to a single thread. Then, nothing. I woke to birdsong, not the mechanical whine of the field, not the hum of resonance, just the clean, familiar rhythm of sparrows somewhere nearby. Sunlight filtered through blinds above me. The air smelled like antiseptic and coffee. My head throbbed. I was lying on a cot in what looked like a medical room. White walls, standard government issue. For a long time, I didn't move. I waited for the light to flicker, for the walls to breathe, for the sound to fall out of sync. But nothing did. Everything stayed perfectly still. A nurse entered quietly, clipboard in hand. Mr. Locke, you're awake. Her voice was calm, normal. That frightened me more than anything. Where am I? Silverford Regional Facility, she said. You were found near the Red Marsh perimeter early this morning. You've been unconscious for about 12 hours. Red Marsh, the word scraped out of me. Is it contained? She hesitated. They said it's been resolved. Who said? The department, she replied, as if that explained everything. Your supervisor's on his way. She left before I could stop her. I sat up slowly. My hands were bandaged. My chest ached like I'd been hit with static. On the table beside me lay a folder labeled Duck Internal. Incident 74 Red. The same classification as before. I opened it. Inside were photos. Images of the sinkhole before it collapsed. The amber light. The valley. But there was one new picture. Two silhouettes standing on the ridge. Blurred, but unmistakable. Me and Marin. Except the caption beneath read, Recovered field projections. Subjects confirmed lost. The door opened again. Lyle stepped in. He looked exactly the same as always. Crisp tie, clean suit, the faint smell of rain on wool. Adrian, he said, smiling faintly. Glad to see you up. Where's Marin? I asked. His smile didn't move. She didn't make it back. I stared at him. That's not possible. We were together when... I know, he said quietly. We've reviewed the telemetry. The collapse was total. You were the only one recovered. Recovered from where? He didn't answer. Instead, he handed me a sheet of paper. Standard debrief checklist. Memory clarity, motor coordination, sensory distortions. You know the routine. I took the form, scanning it. Same as always. But at the bottom, in smaller type, was a new line. "Do you recognize this environment as real?" I looked up. "Since when do we ask that?" "Since Valamont," he said. "You remember Valamont? The name hit like ice water." I nodded. "The resonance field. 2018? Good," he said. "That means your integration's holding." Something in my chest went cold. "Integration?" He smiled again, almost kind. "You'll be briefed fully once your vitals stabilize." "I'm fine," I said. He studied me a moment longer, then leaned forward. "Adrian, there's something you need to accept. The department's role isn't to stop these events. It's to interface with them. We observe, we adapt, we survive." I wanted to argue, but the words caught in my throat. He tapped the folder. Red Marsh was successful. Containment achieved, replication stabilized. "Replication of what?" "You," he said simply. "Or rather, what came back." The room tilted. "You think I'm what? A copy?" He didn't flinch. "We don't use that word. You're functional, cognitively identical. That's what matters." I stood too fast. The IV line snapped from my arm, blood spotting the sheet. "Where's Marin?" "She's in observation," he said. "Different wing." "I want to see her." He hesitated, then nodded toward the door. "If you're steady." I followed him down the corridor. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly. Everything smelled too clean. Every footstep echoed perfectly. Too perfectly. At the end of the hall was a glass viewing room. Inside sat Marin, pale and still, hooked to sensors. Her eyes were open, staring straight ahead. "Why isn't she moving?" I asked. "She is," Lyle said. I looked closer. Her chest rose and fell, but out of rhythm. Too slow, too deliberate. The monitor beside her showed twin pulse lines running parallel, each slightly out of sync. "She's stabilizing," he added. "What does that mean?" "Synchronization is nearly complete. Once she's integrated, we'll assess whether both of you can return to field duty." I turned to him. "You think this, whatever this is sustainable?" He looked back through the glass, eyes distant. "Adrian, most of our staff have come through containment events. That's why they can manage them. You can't control what you've never become." The air between us felt heavy, wrong. I stepped closer to the glass. "Marin," I said softly. Her eyes flicked toward me, slowly. Then the faintest smile spread across her face. Lyle's voice dropped. "She recognizes you. That's a good sign." But the smile didn't look right. It held a fraction too long. "Can I speak to her?" I asked. "Tomorrow," he said. "After she finishes calibration." He walked away, leaving me there with the hum of the monitors and the stillness of that room. I pressed my hand against the glass. On the other side, Marin lifted hers, matching me perfectly. The same gesture, the same timing, but the reflection in the glass didn't line up. Her fingers hovered just slightly apart from mine. When I finally left, the hallway felt longer than before. My badge, which had been clipped to my shirt, buzzed faintly when I passed through the next door. The reader blinked green, then white. For a fraction of a second, the display read, "Access granted. Project completion." I didn't remember any such project. Back in my room, the nurse had left another folder on the table. This one wasn't labeled. Inside was a single page, a typed transcript with a date and time. November 4th, 2025, 07:14 a.m. Audio log. DUC internal speaker. Lyle, director. Subject. Field integration successful. 2 hosts functional. Anomalous field replica. Dissolved into network. Note: maintain perception of normalcy until phase 3. Initiates. At the bottom of the page, in faint pencil, was a handwritten line. "The field doesn't end. It reorganizes." The lights flickered once. I looked up at the ceiling. The hum was back. Soft, steady, patient. Across the room, the mirror on the wall trembled slightly, as though something behind it had just shifted its weight. I stood slowly. In the glass, my reflection smiled first.